Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. For those of you who are having your lunch or your dessert, feel free to bring it along inside with you so we can get along with the session. Okay, welcome back to track one. We're going to be talking about the impact of digital transformation and AI in the workplace. The digital transformation and the rise of AI, of course, revolutionizing the workplace, offering both opportunities and challenges. This panel discussion will explore the impact of these technological advancements on work processes, employee roles, and organizational culture. Our panelists will discuss how to leverage digital tools and AI to enhance productivity, innovation, and inclusivity. For our panelists today, we first have Indika De Souza, the Strategy Advisor Vice President of Huawei Technologies Private Limited and the Chairman of the Federation of Information Technology Industry Sri Lanka. Indika is, of course, a seasoned and vibrant professional and a very result-oriented with over 30 years of rich experience covering digital ICT solutions, marketing, innovation development, integration, and market development with prestigious organizations. Indika is responsible for strategic and policy initiatives across all the business units of Huawei Sri Lanka. Prior to his role, Indika provided leadership to the enterprise business group of Huawei Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a big round of applause for our first panelist, Indika De Souza. Our next panelist is Chathini Uduwana, who is the Vice President of People and the Country Head of Typify Systems. She's committed to shaping the future of organizations through thoughtful planning, effective policies, and a strong focus on product quality. She believes that education lays the foundation for professionalism, providing the discipline needed to excel in any role. With a passion for understanding the socio-cultural dynamics in the workplace, she is committed to driving positive change and inclusivity. Ladies and gentlemen, our next panelist, Chathini Uduwana. Let's give her a round of applause as she makes her way to the stage. Our third panelist is Mayura Malagala, who is the Strategy and Analytics Leader, Deloitte Sri Lanka and Maldives, with over 24 years of experience in enterprise application, design and delivery, solution architecture, business and technology consulting, program management and software engineering for clients operating in the professional services, manufacturing, telecommunication, CPG, retail, financial services, travel and hospitality service industries. He provides subject matter expertise for digital transformation initiatives of key clients and has an excellent track record of delivering results in markets such as the UK, Middle East, and Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a round of applause for Mayura, our next panelist, please? And our panel discussion will be moderated by the founder and CEO of BoardPack Private Limited, Lakmini Vijayasundara. She is a Sri Lankan technology entrepreneur who focuses on making Sri Lankan technology products gain global brand recognition, strives to bring the next wave of unicorns and Forbes-ranked companies from countries such as Sri Lanka, which have a natural technology innovation talent that is not tapped to its fullest. Lakmini, of course, has a wealth of experience in leading global competitive expansion in enterprise solutions. She has won many accolades behind her, some recent wins being selected as a prestigious Ernst & Young winning woman, the role model of the year at the WIMT Top 50 Women in Management for 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, so the session today will begin with our moderator setting the context in the topic with a presentation, and with that, and a round of applause, would like to hand over to Lakmini. Can we give her a big hand, please, ladies and gentlemen?
Thank you so much, and looking forward to this session. So, as the topic goes, it's the impact of data transformation and AI in the workplace. I'll be covering three main topics. It's just a 10-minute session that I'm going to be doing right now. So, in this, in fact, I'll be initially just touching on, as we are in Sri Lanka, and this is a regional conference, the context of Sri Lanka and the workplaces and the kind of role that we have to play for our nation and for our region to reach its goals. So that's the first one. And when it comes to workplaces, we have an eminent panel who will be touching on data transformation and AI. So I'll be just focusing firstly on AI, which is sort of the new emerging part of data transformation. And a very important topic out of all aspects of AI is the ethics and the consideration for responsibility. So that's what I'll be touching. And of course, the eminent panel will give us a lot more in-depth on these topics. So from a Sri Lanka perspective, in fact, from a regional perspective, there are 4 stakeholders: the government, the businesses, that's us, workplaces, R&D, academia, and the startups. So as you can see, we are like one of 4 main stakeholders. So we are not an audience, we are actually a stakeholder that has to do something. I've also just put up, we've got many companies from outside Sri Lanka. So I'm sitting with a group that's from Japan. There's also China, UAE, Saudi, several countries. So we are amongst a regional group of people. And as you can see, our AI readiness, Sri Lanka's, we have to make sure, not just the government, we have to make sure it rises up. Some of our friends over here, like from Japan, they are number 9. We are in number 95, etc. You can see it on the screen. So this is where we stand. As a country, we have an AI strategy, 2024, this year coming out. And I'm just going to throw in a little so that we will make sure that we take advantage of it and make sure that our companies actually thrive with that. So we want to be an AI early adopter in the Asian region, South Asian region. There's a whole task force, and I'm also one of them, one of the members in the task force. Therefore, a prerogative to create the public awareness, really. I'm going to touch quickly on some of these areas. I just want to mention workforce is a very key aspect. So as you can see, we hold quite a lot of the workforce of this country through our workplaces, and it's going to be introduced from the AI curriculum of schools itself. The AI clubs, 100 of them have started already. I don't know whether you've heard of it. We are also SLASCOM, Iron One Technologies, which is one of my companies. We are involved in it, along with the AI Task Force and the AI Center. So there's a lot going on, and I kind of invite all of you to also get involved and be part of this. So this is the strategy. In case some of you haven't seen it, the strategy actually covers many things. It starts from the country's data, infrastructure, the skills, R&D, and then there are a couple of areas that the workplace, as the stakeholder, we have to consider. So it's not just only for our companies and our competitiveness, it's for the whole country. So the public awareness, the stimulation of adoption in our companies, looking at the responsibility aspect. These are very, very important things, and our panelists will talk about a lot of this in reality. So the goals to be progressive as a developed nation, Sri Lanka and our regional countries who are here, it needs digitalization. It needs smart cities, smart transport, and green energy. So these are some of the areas I'd like to highlight. And before we come to workplaces, every one of us, we are already using AI. I mean, we must be using Netflix, we must be using ChatGPT. We're doing all these things, we're already using it. So, but it's an ad hoc thing, right? I mean, nobody has to put policies on us, we are individuals. But then when it comes to workplace, what's different? The matter is that it's a group of people, we have to be more responsible. Therefore, although we can start ad hoc with a couple of use cases, and I'm sure your companies, your workplaces are already using it, to grow from this ad hoc usage, maybe at HR, maybe at marketing, to go from that, there has to be systematic activity that your administration and company might have to look at. It's not just technical. It has to go from people, from the people side, as well as the technical side. So there's a lot of like awareness and things like that that have to be done in your companies. And the time is now. We have to get it done now. So there's workshops, trainings, all sorts of things in that level, as well as from a technical side, the workforce, etc. So again, I'm not going to go into detail because the panelists will fill in with a lot of this. Sorry. And sometimes I would say it's a little daunting in terms of where do we start. So you got your everyday AI. And I'm sure y'all are doing this now because if you take ChatGPT, or your marketing team uses ChatGPT and other tools to create their presentations, even all of us, to create our first draft of presentations, things like that, creating graphics. I mean, I'm sure I don't need to tell you all because you all are already doing that. But then the game-changing AI. Now that's where you might have to get a vendor in Sri Lanka or overseas, or get your own teams, get your own data, technology. So that's a different aspect. And if you take certain industries like supply chain as an example, if you can be more productive and if you can be more cost-effective using AI rather than doing your day-to-day normal activities, that could really be a game changer to your company. So if you take, I mean, I don't know whether there are any banking companies here, but if there's banking, I mean, our company actually does stopping loss, like credit card loss or debt loss, by forecasting with AI. So there's a lot of these things that will come into play, and we have to be sort of ready. We have to get started. I'm just putting this screen to show you a couple of these possible applications. I mean, there's of course thousands of them, but I'm sure some of them are familiar, like Figma. Now, I come from a IT software development background. Our teams are using Figma to get their first what should I call it, screen walkthroughs out. It's so easy now, as opposed to what we were doing manually. Microsoft Copilot. I'm sure almost all of you are using it for your meetings and getting your meeting minutes immediately. Asana. That makes life a lot easier in terms of getting your work activities prioritized intelligently. So again, I'm not going to go into a lot of this, but please do look at these, experiment it, and that'll be the way that you can move forward in your companies. And then, of course, the third topic that I talked about is the ethics and the responsibility. So there are three main items in that. The first item is bias. So your data and your decisions, as an example, I mean, we work with bank data. So when we predict that somebody is a good payer or a bad debtor, there could be bias because our data is not trained on certain, let's say, age groups or something like that. So that kind of thing is a responsibility of ours to make sure when we put these things out that the bias is taken off. There's also the aspect of privacy. So you have to, unlike any other solutions earlier, you have to look after the privacy because the speed at which the data is crunched by AI can create devastating effects. So if you have access to like even your own staff information, private information, and you put it out into AI-related applications, you have to safeguard all the private information. It's a lot more devastating than our standard, what we used to use in for the last 20 years, let's say. So there's a lot of aspects. Again, the panelists will talk a lot more about these aspects, but this particular slide I wanted to put it because it's something that people ask us because we are in technology, whether there's job loss. My answer is really no, if we are equipped. I mean, everybody has the right job in the new world. So we have to get into this ahead. So there's new jobs, and I'm sure some of these titles that I'm putting out, like AI-based business analyst, data privacy officers, machine learning engineers, they were not there 5 years ago. So whoever, like whatever you're doing now, you can look at a career path, whether you can look into that, skill yourself up to that. The other is your own job roles, whether you're a HR specialist, as an example. If you're a traditional HR specialist who doesn't use any of the AI tools, you'll be slower than a HR specialist in the new world. So you have to get these, you have to equip. And I mean, let's say you're writing a job description to put an ad. You can use AI and then edit it. I'm just giving simple examples, but everything. There's so many things that you can do. So I'm sure when you read these titles, these are pretty standard titles that all of us are having, and they all can be AI-enabled HR specialist, AI-enabled creative designer. So that's how you don't lose your job. And then, of course, there's this big area where there can be new businesses, new business divisions. So I'm just leaving those thoughts with you. And with the AI strategy, there's an AI readiness index. So you all can do your own self-assessment. AI Singapore has already put it out. Sri Lanka will put it out for the private sector. They've done it for government at the moment. You can assess yourself and see how far you all have gone. It will come in Sri Lanka formally. So my recommendation or my invitation is, let's be in the early majority. By about 2025, mid, I think we're gonna be on the second side of this curve. So we're in 2024, approaching Q4. I would sort of welcome all of your workplaces to start looking at this. And let's not have any kind of negativity from AI. Let's be on that benefit. So thank you so much. So that's what I had to say. And I'm sure a lot of interesting information will come out when the panelists speak today now. Thank you. So it's very good to see you all, Myra, Chatini, and Indika. So I would like to start with you, Indika. And I mean, the role that you play is quite wide. It's an industry role. Very much into the data transformation. You have quite a good insight on that. So I would really like to hear from you, why is it important for Sri Lankan workplaces such as us to look at this strongly, and some guidance of what priorities we should look at in this?
Yeah, so I'll take a step back also, and Lakshmi, you spoke about the AI strategy altogether. So one point all of us need to understand is that we are a generation of, we are living through the digital economy, which is the digital adoption, digital transformation is mandatory for us. There's no way we can get out of this. And also the other fact is, very soon we are talking about an intelligent world. So while we are living through the digital world and we are moving towards the intelligent world, now we need to think through what exactly we need to be ready for that when the transformation happens. So that's what Lakshmi specifically mentioned, like, you need to be early adapters, we need to keep moving. Otherwise we'll be left behind. If you remember these brands like Kodak, or even a brand like Nokia, which is 15 years ago, these were the biggest brands in the world. And these brands were like, bigger than our economy. Right now, those brands were gone. When they never moved into the digital world, that was the reason. The Kodak thought, okay, their traditional camera will stay on, but they never saw the threat, or they saw the threat, but they never transformed to the digital cameras. Whereas the Nokia thought, like, Nokia phone with the Symbian operating system, that was the best they have. And with the smartphones coming in, they kind of disappeared. These are like very big companies, but they missed it. They got disappeared. So this is exactly the reason, like, which is we need to understand these trends as an individual, as an organization, or as a country, which is we need to have that. And one key thing is from a nation point of view, I'll start from that side, which is digital economy. plan or a strategy or a policy is a super critical thing. Most of the mature markets, even developing countries, have got into these strategies right now. And fortunately for Sri Lanka, we have got our strategy in place right now, which is April. The parliament got approved it. Very similar lines, like, that is together with the AI strategy what Lakshmini spoke about. So as a country, we have a digital strategy right now. I strongly recommend you all to read that, which is available publicly. The key is, there's a key measurement, which is they are talking about the contribution to the GDP from a digital economy, which is the percentage is about, global average is about 25% plus right now for mature markets, or it in beyond, some of the bigger countries have gone close to 40%, but Sri Lanka has a gap. We are just below 5% from a digital economy contribution to the national economy. So that's where a bigger gap. So digital adoption is critical. This includes government and private sector as well. That include us, all of us. So now, from a workplace point of view, relate to you that digital transformation need to happen. Traditional workloads are getting offloaded. Certain things actually taken by AI, as we heard before. Certain things, the jobs has been taken by bots, etc. I'll give you a very small example from Sri Lankan context. The Sri Lankan Rupawahini Corporation, state-owned media station, they used AI for news reading. I'm not quite sure how many of you saw that. About 2 months ago, they use AI for news reading. So they use news anchors got replaced. And if you recall that video, it's available in the YouTube, you can check it out. The 30 years ago, there was this famous person, Raspan Senaratne, who was reading news. He was recreated and he read news 2 months ago in Sri Lanka Rupawahini. So that's how AI has been used in a simple case study. Now looking at these things, what will happen to these news anchors? What the risk of the jobs? So that's a transformation. That's a very small example. Or even the jobs what you're looking at. What modern day you call it as a prompt engineer. These are very demanding job right now with the AI coming in, with GPTX are coming in. So this transformation is happening. So from an industry point of view, which is where I'm coming from, or the government point of view, it's critical to understand the trends which is the organizations are, like, your marketplaces are getting in, and even what we call it like the gig economies or the e-commerce, etc., is disrupting the way we work or the way the business models are being done. So we need to have a clear understanding of these trend lines. Your staff need to be updated, and accordingly your strategic plans has to be made aligned with that. If you make a business plan without these components right now, and obviously you have a high risk of going out of business very soon. So this is becoming a super critical factor. And we are being in the industry or digital side of the world, which is we are seeing how this transformation happening, and which is as organizations, as the leaderships and your boardrooms, these discussions has to be taken in.
Thanks very much, Indika. That's a great perception from your experience on the industry. So I'm going to actually move to Chatini, who is the Vice President, People and Country Head of Typify, which is a company headquartered in Australia and which has a large workforce in Sri Lanka. And the perspective we'd like to hear is from a company, as a company that I'm sure is doing a lot of work in AI. And I'll let you also talk about what exactly that you all are doing in the publishing using that. And specifically, it'll be very interesting to find out what kind of challenges and how you address these challenges in ethics and the practical approach that you use for that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think now everyone knows this word called AI, but the ethical use and the challenges, if we start talking about that, first of all, I think we need to get a good understanding about what are the challenges. So I'm coming from a tech company, but then even for us, these biases and discrimination, that's a key challenge for us, especially like working with a couple of countries, and especially we are using AI in certain areas. We have been using from like a couple of years. But even still, even today, we are facing some challenges. So biases and discrimination, and the other thing, the data protection. So we have came across, we have seen all the scenarios, even though we have all the HR personal data systems, our staff, even the clients, they are a little bit resistant to fill certain information. So imagine if these very confidential systems, whenever they have the AI integration, how do we protect it? And that is a question now we are facing. And the third main challenge, I would say, who is accountable? So we take decisions based on AI, but when someone questions, that can be a compliance issue or a legal issue. So who is accountable for that? Especially like for an example, maybe there's a HR related issue. If we take a decision, not we actually, if the AI take the decision, then who is accountable for that, and how we are going to convey that message to the staff? Because all the time now we are talking about maintaining the transparency as well. So with all these aspects, how do we do that actually? In the practical environment, I think since Lakshmini talked about this national policy and all, so that will be a good starting point to develop the organizational level frameworks. And these frameworks, they are, I think, AI. Of course, it should come with all the policies and procedures, and then the proper validation and the proper audits. Otherwise, when we take decisions, in the human perspective, that's subjective, right? So I have my point of view, and you all have your own point of view. So it is, now imagine if I'm the one who's feeding this data to the AI, then I'm training the AI model according to my thinking pattern. So when it comes to sensitive decision making, like there are 5 people, who are we going to promote? How are we going to remove this subjectivity? So at the moment, even in my organization, we have came across, since we are working with AI and digital transformation all the time, not only in Sri Lanka, even in Australia and US, this subjectivity problem, somehow it appears. Because at the moment, we haven't really agreed on one framework, one procedure to go with. So practically, I would say, especially coming from a tech company, we do believe AI is good. And the change of the other challenges, the change of the mindset. Because in my experience, the traditional HR roles, some of the roles are replacing, but coming up with new roles. Like for an example, we have a chief happiness officer, right? So that is, I think it's evolving. At the same time, here I'm very biased to technical side, so I would say as I think I see all the companies as tech companies. So because I think nowadays with AI, people started talking about AI because of this ChatGPT actually. But even without knowingly, everyone was using that. I'll give you an example. Now, I think everyone is familiar with Grammarly. So imagine I copy someone else's contract and paste it in Grammarly, and then I ask Grammarly to generate, please write it in some other words. How do we handle this kind of things, right? And especially now we code, even ChatGPT can even code. So we copy some other code, and please give me that in some other line of code. So when we are going forward in the organizational level actually, and even in the academia level, these are the problems and the challenges. But since I'm a believer of procedures, processes, and the framework, so if all of us can agree with what are we limiting ourselves to. So I think that will be a good solution.
Thank you so much, Shatini. So that was a view from a company, a technology company that is struggling to make sure that we're doing the right thing in the ethical and responsibility. So now, actually, I move over to Mayura. He's from Deloitte. He's the strategy and analytics leader at Deloitte for Sri Lanka and Maldives. So we'd really like to hear, I'm sure you come across many companies through your experiences. So we'd love to hear for you to share and let us know and see the evolution of job roles, skill sets, and the future of work with special emphasis on how AI is used. So I'd give the floor to you, Myra, to take it on.
Sure, Lakshmini. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I think I'd like to take that in 3 stages. The first aspect of it is when it comes to skills, there are two sides to this, right? There are skills that are emerging and becoming important in terms of the skills that are required for developing AI, right? So these are, skills that are talked about widely in the marketplace, starting from topics or skills like data engineering to data science, right? The very high-tech or techie-oriented skills that are used by organizations to develop AI tools frameworks. Okay? So that's one side. On the second side of it is what Lakshmini spoke about at the beginning in her introductory speech. What are the skills that we require in the general workplaces for using AI effectively, right? To change or enhance or make more efficient the roles and the jobs that we perform day to day, okay? So those skills are not necessarily techie skills, right? But it's more around the usage of AI. And let me talk about a couple of examples. So as a recruiter, okay, how do I utilize AI to make my job easier? Whether I'm writing a more effective job requisition, a job advertisement, or how do I even use AI to help me pick the candidates who are going to be more successful in the role that we need them to play. Okay? Now, the question is, are we looking at profiling people? Absolutely not. Okay? But it's using large volumes of data and developing correlations between past performance of people versus the future anticipated performance based on what we see from a person in their CV or in their interactions with us during a recruitment interview. So, but it's about aggregating that data and using AI to predict the future. Okay? So that's number 1 and 2. The third element of it is skills themselves. Okay? We still see organizations across the globe taking a very traditionalistic approach to the definition of a skill. Okay? Lots of organizations to this day believe that a skill is what the organization defines to be a skill, right? So for example, English language skills, written, verbal, could be Java development skills, right? So many definitions of it, but we are still tending towards a very structured, defined approach of skills. But here's the problem with it, right? And think about it. Skills are dynamic today, right? Skills are no longer what an organization defines as a skill. A skill is what the wider market space in the globe, right, worldwide demands as a skill. And here's where it gets even more complicated. which is today, I can, or you can gain skills in so many different ways, right? In the old model, you were dependent on the organization running a training program or making some content available to you, and then it's tick marked against the learning and development system to say, okay, you went for this training program or you watched this video, and it's tick marked now as a skill that you have acquired. And typically your manager, quarterly, half year or annually, has to go and confirm that you've acquired that skill and also give you a competency rating. That was the traditional way of doing it. I can see a few smiles around the table, which tells me that that's still very much the case today, right? But look, your workforce, that's not the way they're acquiring skills. Yes, the organizations will have a defined curriculum with defined dates, defined ways of acquiring those skills. You'll go for a classroom session or you'll attend a online training session, and yes, you're officially confirmed as having acquired that skill. But hey, what about the skills that your workforce is acquiring through following some course in Udemy? It could be, Headway. I use Headway on a daily basis, right? I spend 15 minutes every morning on Headway, and I'm acquiring new skills every day. What about watching YouTube videos? I mean, okay, forget the songs and the videos and all of that, but a lot of us do use YouTube to acquire skills. Now, where is that skill acquisition getting recognized? Right? So my challenge to you is, if you look at skill acquisition in that broad-based dynamic way, how are we going to use that skill acquisition by an individual employee and map it to the needs of our organization and the business that we are running? The only way we are going to do it is by introducing AI, right, to keep track of what we call dynamic skills and match it to your order book and be able to predict the kind of skills that you need to develop and meet for the future, and understand which parts of your workforce actually have those skills versus where you need to develop the skills further, right? You have to use AI. So just to leave you with these three elements, these are some of the big changes and the evolution that's taking place in how we view skills, job roles, and how we make ourselves ready for the future.
Thanks so much. That's quite thought-provoking, let's say, and there's a lot of HR leaders in this audience too, so it's very relevant, so that these techniques have to be looked at for the future of careers. So with this, I'm going to go back to Indika, somewhat in a similar topic from a different angle. So from your broad role in industry and the ecosystem, how do you look at the workforce? Because let's first start with Sri Lanka. For Sri Lanka to get to the next level, we need a larger workforce, and these are all in workplaces, right? So would you mind telling us a little about that angle of things?
Yep. Okay. So specifically from a Sri Lankan context, we have definitely a deeper gap on the skills is what is required for all the industries. Since there are a lot of HR people in the audience, will agree with me. So now from a Sri Lankan education point of view, when you're looking at, we get about 350,000 kids admitted to the grade 1 every year. There's about 20 to 30,000 drops at about grade 8, grade 9 due to poverty and different issues. Roughly about, for a year, there's about 350 to 300 and almost 400,000 kids sit for O-levels. 50% of that crashes. So 200,000 roughly goes to A-levels. And that out of 200,000, 125,000 roughly passes A-levels. State universities only can take 40,000. Non-state universities takes about another 50,000, and vocational takes about another 30,000 to 40,000. So out of that, if you put plus minus maybe some kind of a continuation education is available, higher edu uni, non-state as well as vocation, about 150,000 of a pool of 350,000. That's 200,000 left behind with higher education or opportunity. So this is a change. So recently, actually, what we have done together with the industry, everybody have got together, looked at how do you transform in this education framework. That is where the key, which is the education or the skill sets has to be developed. Like, whatever we talk, that's a baseline. So that's where what point Lakshmini spoke about, creating 100 AI clubs in schools. How you go into these schools, talk to kids about AI and how AI can be used, one thing for their studies as well as how they do get into the job market. Like, say at the launch even, some kids demonstrated like this about 3 months back or 2.5 months back, like, how they use AI tools and created certain solutions, certain products. So when the opportunity is given to these kids, they will do that. I don't know you are aware, like still in vocational sector, they still teach 12 hours of floppy drive, part of their course. So that's how it is being outdated. So those are the challenges we have right now of like, upskilling. Now we have come a long way, education transformational, the document is done. Because the fact is, like, it takes 8 years to change the curriculum in our system. So 8 years in the modern day of especially technology, like it's like not one generation, is about like, 3 generations outdated. So these are the challenges we faced. Now actually we are fast tracked. We need to leapfrog obviously. Even this AI task force we got together and we talked about how do you use AI bots for teach in the classroom for science, math subjects. Because say we are short of science teachers, maths teachers, English teachers. These critical subjects, we are really short of teachers out of the 10,000 schools we have. How technology can be used. So certain policy changes has been done. We are looking from a technology point of view, how these technologies can be embedded. And obviously, this is where the skilled workforce can be taken into your workplaces. So for you, how many interviews you have to do to get this done? So generally I ask like, one question. If a graduate comes in, tell me apart from your project, what you did for the degree, what else you have done? You will, most of the time, none. You agree? I can see a lot of people are nodding heads. This is a challenge we have because they have done the coursework, but they are not thought beyond them. But if you look at a global statement, if you look at statement issued by Apple CEO, Microsoft, Google, etc., what they say is, we need the skills. We do no longer look at the college degree certificate. It's not the case you don't have to go to college, but you have to acquire the skills. So overall, from a framework point of view, like, baseline, education transformation is ready. Hopefully the skills, what you get with the kids coming from uni or school will be better with this transformation, and that is we have to looking at. The other key factor is like, say, if you ask all of us here, jobs what you are doing right now while we are schooling, these jobs never existed. We never knew this job will be there. So now there's a study done by McKinsey, it's available, you can read it. It talks about the kids in school or uni, when they come out in the next 10 years, the job they're going to do is not created yet. Or the problem they're going to solve is not there. So today we need to train these kids who's in school to get into a job doesn't exist today, as well as to solve a problem is it's not there. So now the key is, it's stereotyping won't work. Like, you read the book, memorize it, come to the test and write it, doesn't going to help you. You know, to have that really creative thinking. That's where the transformation is coming in. And together with the industry, government, academia, all of us are get together and enabling the Sri Lankan education system to face that new challenges is the way we are looking at. So other thing is, talking about the technologies, AI, etc., need to understand the ethical use of it. Now, in a environment, we say in a school, kids fight. You have prefects, you have principal, teachers comes and solve it. But we need to think through, when you get into the cyberspace, cyberbullying is a big issue. Unless we have this ethical use, this from the young age, this is being not taught, we are going to run into a lot of issues. Unethical use of technology. Actually, I was listening to one of the panels very recently from the insurance industry. They have identified the risk area. They publish a report on the risk areas, And one of the highest rated risk areas is the AI used malpractices or unethical use of malpractices. For that is one of the high risk areas insurance industry has identified. So unless we have this streamlined, as a nation we need to have the regulations, we need to have the policies. Some of it, like the Data Protection Authority, etc., has been set up right now. Regulations are coming in, AI policy covers or strategy covers up to a fairly large extent. So hopefully we are very much on a safe space with the right skill sets, ethical use, and definitely use it for the productive for our nation's development will be there.
Thanks a lot, Indika. And I mean, talking about the workplace, I think internships and opening up that in your workplaces would really help to solve some of those things that you're talking about, no?
Yep, exactly. So now most of the team, we learn these in the books, but the thing is, you need to really come and practice it. So one of the things actually what we're doing right now from an industry point of view also, which is now, say we are telling, okay, you need to teach AI in schools. Who will teach? We don't have trained teachers with AI, right? So which is we need to go. Yeah. That's what we are doing. Industry is volunteering, they are taking volunteer time. Some organizations have given couple of hours of employees per a month or a week. Industry goes back to the school system and they train teachers as well as get students, and also some of the projects they do, we act as mentors. So other way, as Lakshmini said, we are taking people into our environments or our industry to get them to learn, and these kids go back and share that knowledge with their peers as well. So we are looking at a very kind of a robust structure, how this technology can be disseminated downstream.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep a lookout and come and reach these institutions to engage with your companies, because you all have the use cases, right? And so moving on, actually the next two panelists will be talking about their real experiences. So starting out with Shatini from Typify. I mean, please share some of the real world examples of successful digital transformation and AI adoption that your organization has experienced.
Yes, I'll get examples from my organization. So first of all, now, especially like the key point with we have done some transformation with HR procedures actually. So now the mainly the primarily candidate screening, everything is for us, it's AI based now. So when we advertise for a job, we get like hundreds of applications. So now it's for us, it's AI driven actually. And then the scheduling the interviews, normally we have 5 interviews, then the generating the questions. So that whole onboarding process is AI driven. And then the, I think but in my perspective, most useful AI integration is actually, when working with engineers, if someone has done something extraordinary, we keep a note, that can be like Notepad or the Slack or Confluence or somewhere, that this particular engineer did something really nice and all. So then, early days, it was really hard to go back and find these notes when we are doing the these assessments. But now it is really easy, because with the AI integration, it goes and find all these things and generate the appraisal, whatever the review notes in the Confluence. So that is something I really like, and it makes my job way more easier. So I don't have to spend 1 hour or 2 hours time getting and writing back my notes. And the other than that, the workflows and we use AI, but in the customer perspective, all the support systems, it's AI integrated now, especially with the, since we work with, I think most of the companies work in 24 hours, as in just to cover the time zones. So if a customer has an issue in your product, early days they had to log a ticket, support ticket, and then only we address to that. But of course now, the ticket will be automatically creating, but there are support chatbots. So now we have tested and we have implemented that, and that is, so actually we can reduce our support staff on that, because that's like repetitive information, and we have trained our models according to that. And again, on top of that, we have integrated AI in our inventory systems. So early days, I'll tell you the difference between 2 years back and today. So early days, when we have to assign, again, like I'm coming from a software company, so when we assign the computers, then we had to analyze, what kind of the engineer, what is the hard drive, what is the RAM, all these information. And then again, what are the devices, according to this spec, what are the devices in our storage, right? It takes some time. But now, and then if that's not available, where we can order that from our suppliers, and are we getting that from US or maybe from Singapore, likewise. But now it's all AI driven, and then just I think it makes life easy, especially HR department. So they know exactly, they don't have to know the technical specs, but they just have to mention that what kind of engineer is joining. And of course, AI generates everything, okay? If that's in the storage, or go and collect that. Or else, if you have to order, just place the order. I think this has clearly, it actually simplifies our job role. And if you can use it, and if you are willing to welcome that, I think that will be a very good value addition. And this is the, when you automate certain processes in the organization, that will automatically reflect on the organization efficiency as well. Because no longer, in most of the cases, we are not thinking, or we are cutting down certain time lapses in all the processes. So if we are willing to, of course, there will be resistance in the beginning, but if we are educated enough to understand what is new and what's coming to the world, and take the good use out of it, then we are in the right path. I think Lakshmini, yeah. And of course, if you want to, there are a lot of other multinational companies like Amazon, DBS, Unilever, all these people use AI, especially even in Amazon now, they don't even go and collect the packages. Everything is like AI-driven robots. They go to the particular shell and collect all these things. But in the Sri Lankan context, I think we can start from the very basic level. Maybe not spend time on reviewing contract, sales contract. Actually, AI can, now we don't do that. Now AI can compare and contrast all the contracts. So we can start from the very basic level for the non-tech companies and create that awareness first of all. Then people, organizations, the leadership should be curious about all these things, and then we have a long way.
Thank you, Chatini. So, I mean, you've got a deep dive from a tech company, which has international presence, some of their deep dive examples. So again, our invitation is to try out in your workplaces and get a start, because it just helps not only you all, but the country as well. So over to Myra, in a similar context. So Deloitte actually, I'm sure your exposure goes across multiple companies, multiple regions. So we'd love to hear from you similarly on the real world examples that might interest the audience.
Sure, Lakshmini. So again, let's talk about this, right? Recent research done by Deloitte, especially in the Human Capital Trends report of 2024, gave us some very interesting insights, right? So globally, 75% of organizations are either actively using and investing in AI within their companies, or are looking to invest in AI and get AI usage up and running within their organizations in the next 1 year. 75%, Okay, that's pretty high number globally. Now, on the other side of it, an almost equal percentage of the global workforce is saying that they are either using AI, right, or they are seeking support to get started on AI. So imagine that, right? The problem's already solved, literally. If so many of us are already using AI or looking to use AI in the immediate future, alongside a global workforce that is clamoring for adoption of AI. Yeah? Let's move on from there. You know, when fire was invented first, many, many hundreds or thousands of, I don't know when it was done, but someone invented fire, right? Do you think the people around that incident reacted in joy and said, oh, you know, fire, new discovery, let's figure it out? No. They initially, I'm sure, they burnt their fingers, word spread saying, oh darn, dangerous substance, it's burning us, so people reacted in fear, right? But it took time, and over a period of time, we learned how to control fire, use fire. Now, have we controlled fire or learned to control fire completely today? No. It still surprises us, it still burns us, it causes damage. But we've learned to mitigate the risks. Okay? So, Lakshmini, I love what you said at the very beginning. You said, get started on AI. And that's exactly what I've got to say as well. Just like we learned how to use fire and control it and minimize risks, we will do the same with AI. Just get started, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind. Okay? The third aspect of it is, let's talk about some of the practical use cases, right? So we talked about recruitment, and I think Chatini and Indika also spoke about recruitment. But who loves expense reporting or expense claims? They have sort of show of hands. Who does expense claims and expense reporting within your organizations? Show of hands, just random. No one? Really?
No one wants to admit.
I guess no one wants to admit it, right? But I mean, I'm sure none of us enjoy it, yeah? Because it's such a painful, tedious process, yeah? You've got to sort of log your expense claim, you've got to route it, you've got to figure out which channel to route it through, then you've got to, you know, it'll probably, today's systems will probably generate a alert saying, you know, oh, this person submitted an expense claim, please go and report it. Now, how many of us have to reach out to that person, give a call and say, hey, buddy, my expense claim is pending with you for so many days, please approve it. That's the reality, okay? But let me talk about, in this instance, one of my personal experience. So I was in a job a few years ago which required extensive travel, right? I mean, came to a point where Sri Lankan Airlines staff would recognize me on site. Yeah. Now, that used to create, I mean, it was a lot of expense claims that I also had to do, right? Flight tickets, hotel bookings, meals, drinks, whatever. Now, but it was so simple for me, because on every flight as I got on board, for that trip that I had just completed, I'll just take a few snapshots of I'll take a few photographs on my phone of my expense claims, and I'll just submit, okay? We use a system that could figure out what type of bill or claim it was, figure out based on the values and the components of the bill, the different routing it had to do, and typically within 4 to 5 days, I'd have the cash reimbursed to my account. Okay, that was that easy. So we're not talking about the future here. I'm talking 2 years back, right? Just 2 years back. Then we are more and more, we are beginning to use AI for fraud detection, right? Now, typically, the world that's brought us to here, typically fraud detection, we are used to it being done after the fact, right? So quarterly audits, half-yearly audits, annual audits, the spot checks that happen, the questions that get asked, the analysis of the business processes that have been followed, and we do the audits, right? And then we'll go and say, oh, you know what? Over the last 12 months, where are we seeing the anomalies? And we are literally trying to close the door after the horse has bolted. Okay? But what about a world where when a purchase requisition gets raised, or when a purchase order is getting approved, a trigger goes out saying, okay, hold on, watch for this, it might be an instance of fraud, please go and investigate, because a similar purchase requisition or a PO approval for a similar amount for a similar vendor happened 2 weeks ago or a month ago, right? And as per our approved contracts, purchasing contracts with our vendors, there isn't a second instance that we can track back to. So go investigate, okay? Now, do you believe that this is futuristic? No right or wrong answer, okay, I'm just throwing it out at you. But guess what? It's being done today. Okay? So, 2 real-world examples. And I mean, in my line of work, we speak to so many organizations around the world. And everyone's saying, okay, where do we get started? Look, the reality is that there is no ideal time to get started. So just get started. But my request is, keep 2 things in mind. Think about these 2 elements only. Okay? One is, what is that citizen or individual usage of AI that you're trying to promote within your organization? Okay? So is that Copilot? Is that Gemini based? Is that ChatGPT based or any other system? It doesn't matter. But what is that individual's usage of AI that you're trying to promote? Okay? Be clear on that. The more important aspect is, from an enterprise-wide adoption of AI, what about the investments that you all have already made over the last so many years on technology, right? I'm not going to mention names, but there are so many tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 products that we as organizations, all of us in the room, have gone and invested in, right? Have clarity around where the roadmap for AI within those existing investments are. Okay? Have clarity around how you're going to work on top of those existing investments to maximize the utilization or usage of AI at an enterprise level. Okay? Vis-a-vis what I said at the beginning about individual's usage of AI and how you're going to promote that individual's use of AI. Yeah? As long as you have clarity on those 2 elements, you're good to start. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Myra. So this is really useful, and it's quite exciting for us to have 3 different perspectives from 3 different panelists from quite diversely different angles and backgrounds. So with that, we're going to end this panel now. And I wish to thank Myra, Chatini, and Indika for their time and sharing all these exciting, very insightful experiences. So thank you again, and thank you to the audience too.